Have you ever stopped to think about what's actually happening when you touch something hot and boom, your hand pulls away before you even register the pain? Or how a simple thought like, I want some coffee, turns into you walking over and making a cup? It's all thanks to your body's ultimate communication network, this incredible biological superhighway that's working at lightning speed. Today, we're plugging right into the nervous system. So let's kick things off with that big question. How does a thought, an idea, or even a feeling become a physical action? It feels like magic, right? But it's not. It's actually this beautifully orchestrated journey of information. And in this explainer, we're going to follow a single signal from the very beginning to the very end. The answer to our question? Well, it all lies within this, your body's command center. This system is probably the most intricate and complex network we know of, and it governs literally everything you think, everything you feel, and everything you do. Okay, so to really understand how a signal makes its journey, we first need a map of the territory. Let's zoom out and start with the big picture, the overall organization of this master control system. So what is the nervous system officially? Well, the key words here are controls, integrates, and maintains stability. A simpler way to think about it is that it's the government, the postal service, and the thermostat for your body, all rolled into one. It's not just about reaction to stuff outside, it's about keeping everything on the inside in perfect balance. This whole system is basically split into two major parts. First, you've got the central nervous system, or the CNS for short. That's the brain and spinal cord. Think of it as the command center, right? The headquarters where all the big decisions are made. And then you've got the peripheral nervous system, the PNS. This is the massive courier network, all the nerves that branch out to every single part of your body, carrying messages to the command center and delivering orders back out. All right, so we've seen the map of this superhighway. Now let's zoom in and look at the actual vehicles that carry all the information. We're going from the entire system down to its tiny, microscopic, fundamental building block. And here it is. Meet the neuron. This little guy is the absolute star of our show. It's a super specialized cell, the core unit of the whole nervous system. Its one and only job is to pass information along. And it does this using this amazing mix of electricity and chemistry. Now, the way a neuron is built is super important because it dictates the flow of information. It's basically a one-way street. You see, signals come in through these branch-like things, the dendrites. They get processed in the main cell body, the soma. And if the signal is important enough, it gets sent out along that long cable, the axon, to the next neuron in the chain. It's always one direction: receive, process, send. So a message comes in, and the neuron decides, yep, this is important, I've got to pass it on. But how does it actually send that signal down that long axon? Well, this is where the magic of electricity comes into play. We're about to see how that impulse actually travels. The signal itself is called a nerve action potential. And the definition right here gives us three huge clues about what it is: rapid, propagated, and all or none. Rapid? Well, that's obvious. It's incredibly fast. Propagated means it travels all the way down the axon without losing any steam. And all or none, well, that's a really cool concept we're about to get into. Let's break it down. So normally, the neuron is just sitting there, kind of like a tiny charged battery. But when a stimulus hits it, these little gates on the axon's wall just fly open. Positively charged sodium ions flood in, and that instantly flips the charge on the inside. This sudden flip is the electrical spark. And that spark triggers the next set of gates to open, and then the next, creating this perfect wave of electricity that just zips right down the neuron. And this is a perfect illustration of that all or none law. Think about it like a line of dominoes. You can tap the first one really lightly, and nothing happens. But once you tap it just hard enough to reach that tipping point, the stimulus is adequate, the entire line of dominoes falls, and it falls at full speed. A neuron works the exact same way. It either fires a full-strength signal, or it doesn't fire at all. There is no in-between. So our electrical domino wave has reached the very end of the axon. But now we have a problem. It can't just jump to the next neuron. There's a tiny, tiny gap in the way. So how does the message get across? Well, this is where our signal has to completely change its identity. This critical junction is called a synapse, and it's not a physical connection, it's an incredibly small gap. This is the relay station, where the message gets handed off from one neuron to the next. Just look at this incredible image. That tiny space you see there, that's the synaptic cleft. The electrical signal arrives at the edge, but it just can't make the leap. So to get its message across that gap, the neuron has to switch from an electrical signal to a chemical one. It does this using special chemicals called neurotransmitters. And you've probably heard of some of them, like dopamine or serotonin. When that electrical signal arrives, it triggers the release of these chemical messengers. They float across the gap like tiny fairies and dock on the other side, on the next neuron, and deliver the message. This chemical step is absolutely crucial. It's actually where things like medications and drugs can influence your brain by messing with these exact messengers. But here's where it gets really clever. Not all messages are go signals. Some of them are stop signals. Excitatory neurotransmitters, they're the ones that tell the next neuron to fire, to pass the message on. But inhibitory ones, they tell the next neuron to hold its fire, making it less likely to send the signal. And it's this constant, delicate balance of go and stop signals across billions of neurons that allows for all the complex thinking and decision-making that happens in your brain. Okay, so we've seen the whole system. We've met the messenger cell, we've seen the electrical spark, and we've seen the chemical jump. Now, let's tie it all together and trace one complete signal from a sensation in the outside world all the way to a perception inside your brain. So, where does it all begin? With sensory receptors. These are specialized nerve endings that act as what are called biological transducers. And that's just a fancy way of saying they convert one kind of energy into another. For example, they can turn the physical energy of pressure on your skin into the electrochemical energy that the nervous system understands. Now, when a receptor is stimulated, it doesn't immediately fire off a full signal. First, it creates this small local electrical charge. And that charge has to build up and reach a critical threshold, a magic number, around 10 millivolts. Only when it crosses that line does it trigger that all or non-domino effect we talked about, sending a full-strength signal on its way. So let's trace the whole journey. A pressure receptor in your finger gets pressed. It converts that pressure into a small electrical potential. Once that potential hits the threshold, bang, an action potential fires down the axon. At the synapse, neurotransmitters carry that signal across the gap to the next neuron. And this process repeats, neuron to neuron, all the way up your spinal cord, until finally the signal reaches the brain. That's when it's interpreted and you perceive the sensation of touch. And the most incredible part of all of this entire unbelievably complex journey, from a single touch on your skin to a thought in your head, from electricity to chemistry and back again, it all happens faster than you can blink. It is a system of truly breathtaking speed and efficiency, and it's happening inside you right now, millions of times over. So think about it. Right this very second, trillions of these signals are firing away, constructing your experience of watching this, of hearing my voice. Everything you see, everything you feel, is just an interpretation of these electrical and chemical whispers. They are, quite literally, the building blocks of your reality. Which leaves us with one final, pretty mind-bending question. Every second, trillions of these signals are defining who you are and what you experience. What will you do with them?